Let's move on, though, now to the Tennessee Titans and kind of evaluating what 2022 was like. Let's try and figure out what 2022 was like for them and what they need to do in 2023 to start competing for Super Bowls again. But before we do that, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you can see when Ryan and I create new videos. Ryan, it's funny. We just talked about how many great quarterbacks there are in the AFC South. Well, not in the AFC South, just in the AFC in general. And none of them play for the Tennessee Titans.
No, yeah. No.
None of them do.
None of the great receivers in the AFC play for the Titans either.
Only one of the great running backs.
Yeah. And frankly, his offensive line let him down this year. They only had the 13th best running attack, and I think that's a career low for Derrick Henry. Well, I guess it may be in the last 5 years when he's really started to take off.
It's crazy that 1,538 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns is a career low. When his career took off over the past 5 years, as you said. But
he's on the decline.
He's on the decline. He's only averaging 1,500 rushing yards. And he's still, I think he finished second behind Josh Jacobs, I think, in the overall rushing. So it's absolutely insane. I think one thing to give the Titans the benefit of the doubt, it's absolutely insane how many injuries they had. There was once, and they had 80 different starters, and that was like at week 16, I think, or week 15. It's who knows if it only even went up more. But Tannehill, give him credit. Really tough guy. I watched a lot of games where he's playing on a bum ankle and he's just fighting it through and he's struggling to run. Malik Willis, I mean, it was rookie year, really tough to judge in this situation, but he did not impress at all, especially considering the other quarterbacks that were drafted. Desmond Ridder performed well. Kenny Pickett, who was picked in the first round, obviously performed much better.
I agree and disagree with that statement. He might not have been as good as people wanted him to be. However, he was very athletic and he showed why he was drafted where he was, but he also had the biggest talent jump from Liberty to the NFL. And so I think some of it was he might have just been in over his head a little bit. And they knew drafting him that it was going to take him a little bit longer to pick up an NFL system.
Well, and that's what, and for me, mainly in the passing side, he is super athletic. I could see him if you give him another year or two to sit behind, go the Jordan Love route, and couple years in the league becomes more accurate because he's got an arm and he's super quick. And you know what? Actually, that being said, it's the perfect example for someone who ended up playing in the meaningful games towards the end of the season. Josh Dobbs, he had to go on that journey and didn't look great, but he looked okay. You know,
he was serviceable.
He was serviceable
for the time being. And defensively, they actually were in points per game were actually fairly average. They were 15th, averaging 21.1 points a game, giving up 21.1 points a game. Rushing, they were first actually in defensive stats. It's just in the pass defense, they were 32nd. They were the worst pass defensive team in the league, giving up almost 275 yards a game. And in a passing league, when you're giving up that much, it does not bode well for your chances to win. And so I think that kind of rounds out what like they really need to improve is get that offensive line back to being healthy, and then get corner in the first round. Like if not an offensive tackle. So it is going to be tough for them in free agency. They are about $23.5 million under the cap. Is that close to what you have?
Yeah.
And so
23.5.
Yeah. That to me, they are in a tough spot with that. They have a couple free agents, Austin Hooper, Lonnie Johnson, that I think those are probably their biggest losses. And even then, I don't know how big they are. To me, the big move they're going to make this year is they're going to have to cut Taylor Lewan and save his cap space. That will get them not even, but a lot closer. I want to say he has a $12.5 million cap hit.
I'd have to double check, but that would sound about right. Especially too, then also like probably their best offensive lineman, Nate Davis, is a free agent, and you're going to want to keep him as well. And that's a good point too, especially if they cut Taylor Lewan, and then I think they're picking 11th if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that is prime Paris Johnson Jr. territory right there. I mean, I don't see
the guy I like for them a lot is Broderick Jones. To me, he's the most athletic of the three top offensive tackles, but he's also the most aggressive and physically imposing in the run game. And he's more than willing to get out in space and knock some people on their asses. Like that.
Well, that sounds like the Tennessee offense in a nutshell.
Yeah.
They just want to run you over.
Yeah, and I loved watching him on tape. I think he's going to blow up the combine too.
Well, and that's one thing too. It's tough now when you see these offensive linemen, and we've been doing our mock drafts. It's like, oh, we see this film, we see this like film. I was like, oh, like it's hard to put them side by side. But now it's like combine, especially in this situation. If you're the Titans, like we literally get to see these two specimens, these two human beings go up against one another, and which one's better.
That is the one thing about like SEC talent that I think has more merit to it is like, okay, SEC is cream of the crop college football. And it's like Broderick Jones dominated SEC football at like a 90+ grade from PFF. So I think at 11, if Broderick Jones is there, that is the pick. Other guys that I like, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, very physical corner. I think he would fit into Vrabel defense very well. I don't think Devin Witherspoon is going to be there. I also think he might be a little small. For that, he's only 6 foot 180.
Yeah,
and while he plays aggressive, I think schematically they ask corners to do a lot. And so I like Christian Gonzalez a little bit better for that, but. To me, biggest needs, offensive tackle, wide receiver, and corner for them, and then bolstering that secondary. I don't have quarterback on there just because I don't think that they have room to address it this offseason.
I almost think they're just going to roll. So Tannehill does have another year left on his contract. I think if they're trying to clear out space, he might be a cap casualty as well. But it's like Josh Dobbs wasn't horrible, and you keep Malik Willis on. Maybe you can then go sign someone cheap, like maybe Gardner Minshew as well, to kind of bring in just some more quarterback competition than have the best guy win. But I agree with you as well. And it's kind of actually then the beauty of like when this team was really good was it didn't matter who was at quarterback. Now Ryan Tannehill was really good. I mean, like he fit that system, did great with the play action. But you're Derrick Henry first, Derrick Henry second, Derrick Henry third, over and over and over again. And then you have these big receivers, and you can have a play action offense, like when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator there. Because the teams would be like, we got to put 8 guys in the box, 9 guys in the box. And like, well, now then it's like, well, now we have Treylon Burks, who's this huge receiver who had a decently good season. He was hurt, unfortunately, for a decent bit. 33 catches, 444 yards, only 1 touchdown through 11 games. But I think some of that had to do with quarterback play as well. But that's when they were all really good. That's when that system fit really well. And so, as you said, quarterback, you just need a guy back there that's accurate and is a good game manager, because that's what Ryan Tannehill was. He was one of the best at it, but he wasn't going to go out there and win you games, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So last thing for this is, to me, I think their offseason strategy, shore up that offensive line, add depth at the corner position, maybe get a young guy in the draft that could come in and be a day one starter, and then turn this offense back 3 years and have Derrick Henry try to run for 2,000 yards again and wear down defenses. Because I really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. This team was horrible last year, and they played a game in Jacksonville last year for the division in Week 18. And I think that is a pure testament to Mike Vrabel's coaching ability.
It's funny, like we were talking about it. It's like it's so hard. It was so hard not to say Mike Vrabel's coach of the year, because it's kind of like if you have like the most valuable player, is like you take this guy away from this team and this team sucks. Like all the players can't play. You take Mike Vrabel out of Tennessee last year. I don't know what other coaches could do what he did, especially with all the injuries they had on defense, with how awful that secondary was. It's like they were still able to compete. They went, if I'm not mistaken, I think they went into Lambeau and beat the Packers like on prime time pretty handedly. And so competed hard against the Chiefs in prime time as well. And that was a Malik Willis game.
They actually were winning
they were winning for majority of the game. Yeah. And so it's like he put them in a lot of positions to win games. Injury just got to them.
Yeah.
By the end of the year. And that's like one of the positives, like where that's not a foregone conclusion that Jacksonville's going to win the division next year. Even though I think that they're probably talent-wise the best team. But you put Mike Vrabel on that team, like he's going to put his players in the best opportunity to win games.
Yeah. No, I agree. But let's wrap up the Jacksonville Jaguars there, or not the Jacksonville Jaguars, the not Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans. I'm just going to go through the whole division. Let's wrap up the Tennessee Titans there.